In our comment section, we get asked a lot about demos, and they get brought up quite a lot, and it appears there's quite a bit of confusion about what to actually use a demo for. So I'm going to tell you today about what a demo is and different kinds of releases. So, a demo is something that you would probably record on your own for the purposes of you listening back to your music to see how it sounds, giving it to colleagues for opinions, sending it to potential music industry people who might want to work with you, and is generally not for public release because it'll probably sound a bit shit. However, if your demo sounds awesome, then feel free to release it. But you're always going to think that your demo sounds awesome anyway because it is most likely going to be the first recording of your song that you've heard. So yeah, don't release it. Moving on to actual releases, the most simple kind, I suppose the most simple and the most common kind of release is a single. A single will most likely be one track that you release, and it'll usually go with a music video. A single can sometimes consist of an A-side and a B-side, with your A-side being your main track that you send to radio and you do the music video for, and your B-side being your maybe slightly weaker track that goes on, but you still want it on there to make it more of a product than just selling one song.
So we're saying that maybe use your B-side as a more experimental style track.
Yeah.
A-side, more of your common sound, B-side more experimental.
Like some of the bands that we work with, they do their A-side as like the standard big single, and then they do the B-side as maybe a ballad or a lighter song, or just something totally different to what they've done before, like Lenny said, experimental. I suppose one of the most talked about among low-level bands kind of releases is an EP. EP stands for extended play, which harkens back to when you had vinyls, where you had an LP and an EP. Where you had an LP, which I don't really remember what that...
Long play. That one,
it's long play?
I think so.
Okay. So
if it's not long play, I'll put that on screen with what it actually is.
An EP will usually be 4, 5, 6 songs that are just... It's sort of like a third of an album that you just release. And usually when you're releasing an EP, you will do singles and the build-up to the EP. An EP is a really good way of releasing a collection of songs without really committing to the big product that is an album. And it is a really good way for low-level bands to have some music that they can just show to people, as opposed to just having, oh, here's one track that we have. You can have, oh, here's our EP. Finally, we have an album. This is your 10-plus track long... album. It's usually something that isn't done by low-level bands. In my opinion, you should wait at least 2 to 3 years of good, solid fan building before you release your first album, because your debut album, you will only ever have one debut album, and it has to be good. Yeah, you cannot have a crap debut album, otherwise your career's not going to get much better from there.
Yeah, there's no point being like, our third album's out, and it's finally good. Like,
yeah.
Use the EPs and singles to experiment with stuff to really get good.
By the time you're releasing your album, you need to be solidified in your style and you need to be on top form. So if you have any doubts about your capability of doing an album, if you're like, should I do an album, should we do an EP? Do an EP. Don't ever do an album just on impulse. Because a lot of bands, as soon as they start, are like, oh yeah, we're going to do his first album. And you don't want to do that. You wait 2 to 3 years of solid crowd building before releasing your album. EPs and singles can be put out pretty much whenever, but you don't want to be flooding your market, really. You don't want to be like, oh, we've got an EP, and then 2 months later, oh, I've got another EP. I would say do 1 EP per year and a maximum of 3 singles per year.
You can do singles without an EP. You can do an EP without a single, but generally it's recommended to. No.
Singles are usually your stepping stones towards something bigger. We are going to make another like a release plan video in the near future, which is going to really explain how to stage your releases and how to build up to an EP or an album using singles or other means of promotion. Have a lovely day. Die. Let's go.